Hello, my name is Bernard White, and today we have a guest with us in our studio, and it's Carl Dix. And Carl Dix is a longtime revolutionary and a founding member of the Revolutionary Communist Party USA. In 1970, Carl was one of the first of the Fort Lewis six GIs who refused to go to Vietnam. He served 2 years in Leavenworth Military Penitentiary for his stand. In 1985, Carl initiated the Draw the Line statement, a powerful condemnation of the bombing of the Move House in Philadelphia. In 1996, Carl was a co-founder of the October 27th Coalition to Stop Police Brutality. Carl coordinated the Katrina hearings at the 2006 Bush Crimes Commission. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Bernard.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of things to talk about. There seems to be a resurgence of activity in the streets for some reason. I don't know whether it has, how much it has to do with the Obama election, or how much it has to do with just the conditions of people around the country. But I noticed that you're having a forum, a part 2, in the age of Obama, police terror, incarceration, no jobs, miseducation, what future for our youth? Before we get to that, maybe you could tell us a little bit about what happened in part 1.
Well, part 1 had the theme of the ascendancy of Obama and the continued need for resistance and liberation, which also happened up in Harlem on the campus of City College of New York, July of 2009. And at that point, a lot of people were much more into the Obama mania. You know, the whole talk about post-racial, you know, the U.S. was entering a post-racial type situation, and people were being hit with that, but also dealing with the reality that Obama goes into office and, you know, Clinton's old economic team comes in with him. The wars for empire continue. There's talk of a surge in Afghanistan. And some of what people thought would stop, like the way in which black people catch hell under this system, continued apace, while at the same time the overall economic situation wasn't improving. So that was kind of posing questions for people, but they still were somewhat way locked into the Obama mania, as I was talking about. And Cornel and I went at that in a way of, well, let's talk about this. Let's open it up to a discussion of what does Obama coming into office present. And we didn't agree on everything around that. Cornel viewed it as the end of 3 decades of Reaganism. I more viewed it as, well, it didn't really end. And even some of what Cornel had to say pointed to that, like Clinton's economic team coming in. The bailouts that bailed out Wall Street to keep the capitalist system afloat, but did not address the very real devastation that broad sections of True are facing. You know, like the foreclosures continued, people who had done everything right were losing their homes. Within that, black people were being particularly hit because black people were more likely to be subjected to these subprime loans, not because they deserved subprime loans, but because of the discrimination in the finance setup, took black people who qualified for regular loans and steered them to these subprime loans with ballooning payments that they couldn't keep up on. So we got into that and talked about it. And we also agreed on some things, because he agreed wars for empire are continuing to go on, and that Obama was not addressing a lot of the concerns of basic people in the society. So that's what we talked about. We also talked about the fact that even though he had supported Obama, I had said Obama is a representative of capitalism and could expect is a continuation of that, and what we need is a movement for revolution. What we agreed on is that there was a need for resistance to continue, for you to speak truth to power and not be swayed by the fact that it was now represented by a black president. And we see this as a continuation, because right now, you know, the overall economic situation is pretty similar. I mean, the recession's over. But you know, you go out in Queens and you see massive foreclosure sign, you know, and these were like large numbers of black people, them both husband and wife, thought that they had, you know, they made their down payment on the American dream and see it turning into a nightmare. That's still going on.
With predator lending practices?
That's still going on, you know. This is October 21st, 22nd, the National Day of Protest to Stop Police Brutality, Repression, and the Generation. This is another front where things have not only continued but even intensified. You know, election that America might be ready to put a black man into the White House, but America is not ready to stop having its brutalized and even murdered black in the streets across this country. And that's going on. I mean, here last weekend, a Pace University student, a young black man, gunned down the police, and the police were like, well, we had to do defending ourselves, but this was a young man who was unarmed, and there was a brawl going on that he was not involved in, and he was leaving the scene brawl, and the cops confronted him, not the brawlers, and ended up him. Despite that, another young man is dead, and the police are claiming it was his fault, and the witnesses are saying he wasn't doing nothing. You know, and this is too much. I mean, just this year, Stanley Jones, 7-year-old girl in Detroit. So the dogs are still, and the movement of resistance still needs to be in the street. And perspective as a revolutionary, a movement needs to not only be in the street, but it needs to bring steam. It needs to be, it don't have to be this way. And I'm going to be speaking to on October 29th with Cornel. Now, we're going to agree on some things. We agree on others, and we're going to get into some area where, you know, when I last talked to Cornel, interesting to me, I have to look into this. He was not so phenomenon of the Tea Party and exactly how acting people broadly, because one thing that's happening is these racist act of chilling some people who think Obama ain't taking care of business after him. Got to have his back.